Welcome to episode 29 of Knitter Matters. Thank you very much for joining us today, whether you're watching live or the replay later. Welcome. I really appreciate you joining us. I'm Cheryl Lampard. I'm an image consultant with Style Matters International. And sorry, where was I going? I forgot what I was going to say. Two of the great pleasures of my life have been knitting and sewing, and knitting in particular I find very relaxing and therapeutic. I used to also be the owner of a fabulous yarn store in Brighton, England. And one of the great pleasures of owning a yarn store is that you get to teach people how to knit. And it's my pleasure now to teach you how to knit, albeit via a different platform. Don't forget that our friends at Merry Maxim offer a 20% discount for the highest priced item in your cart, as long as you put in the promo code Cheryl. Do have a look at their website, merrymaxim.com. There's some gorgeous things in there for fall, autumn, and the festive season. And I think we all need a little jollity festivities this year. So anything you pick from there, you'll get 20% off the highest price item, but you must put in the promo code Cheryl. Unlike me, that is very easy to remember. So just put in Cheryl and you'll get your 20% discount. I'm now going to ask the camera to turn to the worktop, and I'm going to take my seat and we'll get started on the topic of today. Now, today we're going to talk about increases and decreases. Increases and decreases are generally used to shape knitting. So unless you're only knitting straight-sided items, at some point you'll need to use techniques to add or reduce stitches. But you can also use increases to create decorative stitch patterns, as I've done here. And in lace knitting, they're used all the time to make airy open stitch patterns without altering the shape of the garment. This is a work in progress. This is actually going to end up to be a shawl. It doesn't look like much like one at the moment, as you can see, but this is the centerpiece of a shawl, and then I cast on and knit sort of the wings afterwards. But I wanted to show you this piece because obviously I have used increases to enlarge the shape here to get up to here. Then we've gone straight. But I've also used increases here in this honeybee stitch pattern, which I'll pull out because obviously it's not been blocked yet as I'm still working on it. But you can see we have right leaning and left leaning stitches here, and those are created. These are actually decreases, but we've done yarn overs to make up the numbers, as you were, so that we always have the same amount of stitches on the needle at any one point in this particular pattern. So you can use your increases and decreases in ways to create decorative patterns. On this piece, for example, which I know you've seen before, but this, let me show you, let me spread it out on the mat so you can see. So here in this leaf pattern, we actually create more stitches at this point to make this sort of embossed leaf. Then we decrease here, and it's not the best pattern if you want to keep counting your stitches on your row, because within that 24 stitch pattern that make up the leaves, each row is a different number of stitches, so it can drive you nuts to actually find out where you are if you lose count. Nevertheless, it is a pattern that it alters the amount of stitches each row, but it hasn't altered the shape of the garment. Obviously, though, I have altered the shape of the garment here, where I've shaped for my neckline, and I've done a very simple decrease right on the edge here, because by the time I've put my neckband on, that's going to be, by the time I've picked these stitches up, you're not going to see those decreases there. And likewise, I've increased here to give me some shape for the armhole. And again, I've added those increases right at the edge because they're not going to show when I put the band on. So those do alter the shape of the garment, which was the intention. So you can use increases and decreases for different things. And this cowl, which again you've seen before, but this is basically stockinette stitch and a number of decreases and increases to create this interesting kind of dual-sided bubble effect, really. So that's all that is. It's increases and decreases, but you can do so much with them. Okay, so let's just take a look first. So in episode 3, I demonstrated some basic increases and decreases. Oh, Dawn, you're watching. Thank you so much for joining us today. That's wonderful. Thanks for watching live. I love you're a follower of us, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. So in episode 3, I demonstrated some very basic increases and decreases that will work right at the edge and to enlarge the knitted fabric as here or make it smaller. But when you want, there are times when you want to actually make the shaping visible. You want to make it show. So here's a way of making a feature of it. And I'm going to show you a few different increases that you can do to make a feature of it, and some decreases that you can make a feature of too. So here with this swatch, what I've done here is work 3 stitches before I do my increase on both sides. So I've left 3 stitches before, I've left 3 stitches after the increase here, and I do 3 stitches before it here. And I'm going to show you, with all the samples I'm going to show you, with one exception, I'm going to show you a right leaning increase and a left leaning increase. With this one, it's actually the same increase, but it is a visible increase. You can actually see these little bars, and this one is called a bar increase. It's very simple to do because you basically just knit into the front and back of the stitch. And I'm going to refer a couple of times to the little abbreviation sheet that I've shown you before. So knitting into the front and back of the stitch on a pattern will be KFB. Okay. Often a pattern will tell you the sort of increase it wants you to make. If it doesn't, then you need to choose, which is why I'm showing you a variety today, because some are better for purpose than others. So this one, you do get this visible bar. You may not like that. There's another one that you can do that doesn't have that. I'm going to show you in a minute. But I'm going to show you how to do this because it's very simple, and you actually only have to remember 1 stitch. However, there are things that you do have to remember with this one, because this bar comes up to the left of the stitch. When you get to the end of the row, if you want to retain 1 or 2 stitches for your edge, you're going to have to do your increase 1 stitch beforehand. It'll make sense when I show you. So let me show you how to do that. So I've got a little sample here. Let's move that out of the way for the moment. So I'm just going to do, I'm going to knit, I'm going to slip my first one. So I'm going to knit 3 stitches, then I'm going to do that increase. So I'm going to knit into the front and the back of the stitch. You can already see that little bar there. So now, if I was to just knit to the last 3 stitches, which I will do and show you. So I've got my 3 stitches, and you think, well, I can do my increase here. But here's the thing, if you do that same increase there, your little bar shows up to the left. So you've only got 2 stitches for your edge. Not the end of the world, we just unpick it. So what I'm going to do on this one, I did 3 stitches there, then I did my increase. I'm going to knit up to my 4th from the left edge there, knit and into the front and the back. Now I'm going to knit my 3 stitches, and I'm going to do that again for you so you can see it better. I'll do the purl row so you can really see how that bar. So that's the only thing you have to remember with the bar increase. If you're doing it on the edge, oh gosh, if you're doing it on the edge, oh dear, what a day today, Cheryl. Okay, start that bit again, sorry. Ah, that's what happens when you're doing it live. No matter. All things in knitting can be rescued. Might take a while, but really you can rescue anything with your knitting. It's not like cutting into a piece of fabric and realizing you've cut the wrong piece off. Knitting can be sorted. Okay. less haste, more speed. Anyway. Right, so let me show you again. So you can see that little bar there. I've actually done that in the wrong place. It's not a good day for me today, is it? Oh well, I'm going to show you again. What have I done here? It's not Friday the 13th, is it? Sorry, I did that one more over and I'm so sorry. Ah, okay, I'm going to do 2. Start again. I want 3 stitches to show up. I need to do 3, my increase on my 3rd stitch for my right leaning. I'm sorry, everybody. And then when I get to the end, I am going to do it the 4th stitch in. That's what you got to remember with this one. So on my 4th stitch, I'm going to knit into the front and back. But this is why you do swatches, so that you can see, and as I was doing my swatches last night, they were perfect. I'm going to do 1 more row so you can see. But the stitch is the same. You just have to decide where you want to place it. And if it's in the wrong place, just unpick a row. You just have to remember it shows on the left. I obviously miscounted my stitches when I dropped those first 2. Okay. So you can see here, I've done 1, 2, 3, and that is my bar. So I knitted my 3 stitches, and I did my increase on that 3rd one there, okay? Because the bar shows up on the left. And you just have to remember when you get to this end, which is the one that I thought I would forget and didn't, I've got to do that on the 4th stitch in, because that's where the bar is going to show, okay? If you do it on the edge, it's not going to show, but it is going to show across your knitting. So it's probably not the best choice if you want to increase as you go along, because it is going to be visible. But if you're using a fancy or a textured yarn, it's not going to show. But again, another reason to do a little swatch so that you can see. Okay, let's move that one out the way. Another one that I think you'll really like, and I really like this one. This one is almost invisible. You can see here I've done the same thing. I've done 3 stitches. I have done 3 stitches on either side. And I don't have to make an account for where my stitch is going to go, where my increase is going to go on this one. But you do the stitches slightly differently for the right and the left leaning. It's a beautiful increase. It's barely visible. You just see the shaping. So I'll show you how to do that. That one is called Make One. Now, it will just say Make One on this particular abbreviations, but your pattern may say Make One M1 left or M1 right. That means Make One left and Make One right. And I will show you how to do both. So on this one, I'll carry on with the same piece of knitting. That makes more sense. So I'm going to do 3 stitches. Okay. Then to make one right, I insert the needle, my left needle, from the back to the front. I'm looking for this little loop, this horizontal loop that's lying between the 2 stitches. So I've done 3 stitches. I insert my left needle from back to front. This is for the right leaning decrease. So I insert that from back to front. Okay, let's get that on the needle. So it's going that way. And then I knit into the front of it. Okay, I knit into the front of it. So I'm going to stop 3 stitches from the left side. Three stitches from the left side. I really am going to stop 3 stitches from the left side this time. Now, because this is a left leaning increase, I do the opposite thing. I put my needle in from front to back. So I'm still using that strand between the two stitches, front to back, and then I knit into the back of it. Okay. Let me whiz up the purl row. So this is a really nice increase. You just have to remember which way the slant is going to go. And what I tend to do, if it's something I think I'm not going to remember, I just make a little note for myself. But once you start doing, you'll soon get the hang of it. I'll show you one more time on this one. You can, of course, do purl increases and decreases, but I figured most of the time you're doing them on the right side. Well, that's what the aim is, especially if you want visible shaping. So I figured we'd just go with knit ones this time. You can't even see that. I'm going to do it again so you can see what I did. So I'm going to knit my 3, oops, my yarn is splitting a bit there. I'm going to knit my 3 stitches. So remember, for the right leaning, we go from back to front, and then we knit into the front of the stitch. Then we carry on. Then we stop 3 stitches away. That little cast on tail will get out my way. And this time we're going front to back. And then we're knitting into the back. You knit into the back of this, so you're twisting the stitch. You twist the stitch. See how nice. And compared to the one below, where you have that little bar, it just disappears. It's lovely. So if you're doing it just on stockinette stitch, this is probably a good one to use, because unlike this bar increase, you don't see it at all. Okay. I'm going to show you another one, which is very similar, but you do leave a hole this time. It's actually the same stitch, but instead of twisting the stitch, we just knit it. Now this could be very effective if you want maybe increasing on a design where it's part of the design element. Maybe it's towards the armhole shaping, or it's going up a sweater. It's a really nice little feature. It makes a little hole. You could even do something with that hole and run ribbon through it if you wanted to. You could do anything you wanted to, decorative thread, whatever, but it is really rather nice. And let me show you how to do that. I'll just whiz back up my purl row. It's actually the same stitch. It's the make one, but you're not knitting into the back of it. That's not on your abbreviation sheet as a separate stitch. If a pattern wants you to do that, it will say. So bear in mind what the pattern says when it tells you the increase it wants you to do. If it doesn't say, then you must decide. But remember, if it's going to be across the row, you'd probably do the make one increase across the row, because it's just going to disappear into the pattern. It's not going to show. So let me show you again, but this time we're not going to twist the stitch. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go from back to front, and I'm just going to knit that stitch as it is. I'm not twisting it. I want a hole this time. Okay. Same at the other end. So it's the same stitch that we just did. We're just not twisting the stitch. If you don't twist the stitch, you get a hole. So if you do these make one increases and you think, I've got a hole and I didn't actually want one, it's probably because you didn't twist the stitch. I'm going to do my left leaning. Now I go from front to back. And again, I'm just going to knit it as is. Okay. So you'll get your little hole there. I've got time to just do the purl row so you can see. So if you're doing a different type of increase to what you normally do and you're having it show, do check the first few rows to make sure you're doing it in the right place. Really, the first one is that the bar increase is the only one you have to watch because it goes to the left of that stitch. So it can sort of throw out your calculations as it did for me. But the make one is going to sit where you put it, whether you do it with a twisted stitch or not. Whether you want a hole or not, it's going to be where you actually place it. So can you see that there? There's my little hole there, and there's my hole there. So if I went on doing that up on my increase, I'm going to get the holes there. Nice feature. Okay, well that's some increases. Let's now look at some decreases. So with my decreases, what I've got here, let's bring the mat back so you can see it. What I've got here are left and right slanting decreases again, and these are super simple. Again, I've done 2 or 3 stitches. Again, play with that, see how wide you want it. But these are super simple on this one. Okay, and I'll show you how to do that. What I've done here, so what I'm going to do is I knit 2 together for my left slanting. So if I'm decreasing now, I want to go this way. This is on your abbreviations. This would be my left slanting increase. This is a knit 2 together through back of loops. So that is knit 2 together. So here we're doing knit 2 together and then through back of loops, through back of loops. So just put those together, knit 2 tog and TBL, knit 2 together through back of loops. That's what you're doing for the left leaning, and it's super simple. So I'm going to do my 3 start off stitches and I'm going to knit through the back of my loops, and that's what you do. Sometimes I just need to ease the stitch. If it's tight on the needle, you can just pull it out, but I'm not going this way. I'm knitting through the back of the loops. I know we've done that before, but if you're watching for the first time, that's how you do it. And if you're watching for the first time, welcome indeed. Now here, remember I want my 3 stitches for my edge, so I'm going to have to stop at number 5 because I'm going to knit 2 together on this one. I'm just knitting 2 together frontwise. This is going to be my right leaning decrease, knitting 2 together. Okay, then I've got my 3 stitches. And you could just do 1 stitch in from the edge. You could do 2. It just depends what the design that how you want it to look like. I did mine several in because I want you to actually see. Let me whiz along the purl row so I can show you. We're doing okay for time. And I hope your Tuesday is going well. Okay. So this is probably the easiest decrease of all, knitting 2 together through the back of the loops and just knitting 2 together. You just have to remember that they will have a visible slant, so you need to remember if you want that as part of the design. You can already see that through the back of the loops and knit 2 together. Do it one more time for you. 1, 2, 3. And I knit through the back, knit them both together through the back of the loops. You do them both together, you don't slip, slip. That's a different stitch. You're doing them together. This is probably the easiest decrease. And again, there are decreases you can do on purl rows. I've just stuck to knit rows for the moment. Otherwise it's a bit too much to take in. This one now is our knit 2 together. Knit 2 together, I want a right leaning slant on that. There we go. You can already see that starting to happen. There and there, okay. Then finally, there's a really nice one here. let's get this so you can really see it. This is called a double vertical decrease. Looks much more complicated than it actually is. You could really have fun with this. You could really shape something, maybe the bottom of a sweater or a tunic. You'd obviously have to account for those decreases, but you can really have fun with this one. Looks much more complicated than it is. All we're doing is knitting two together and passing them over the stitch. And that's the effect you get. I'm going to show you how to do that. Really simple, surprisingly simple. And this one is on the abbreviations chart as well. It is SK2P. Slip one, knit two together, then you pass the slip stitches over. So you're doing two together. Let me show you how to do that. And I'm going to go somewhere in the middle here. Oh, okay, my yarn's got tangled. Let me show you. My yarn has got knotted up, of course it has. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to show you this somewhere in the middle here. Doesn't matter for this purpose if it's in the middle or not, but you'll need to, if you're doing it in the middle, you'll need to make quite sure. So we're doing here, it's called a double vertical decrease. It's S2KP. You're inserting your right needle into the next two stitches on the needle. You're not slipping them off one by one. That's a different stitch. You're going both together. You're slipping them off as if you're knitting them together. You're slipping them to the right needle, then you knit the next stitch, and you, with your left needle, you pull both the slip stitches over that one knitted stitch. I'll show you again. When you do your little practice swatches for this, you might just need to, you'll need to watch where you do that if you want to keep it in line, unless the pattern says otherwise, because you've got to take account of where those slip stitches are going over the knitted stitch. And it's easy to miscount. Show you again. But this is a lovely decrease and it really looks impressive. So you could use that to shape all sorts of things. That's pretty much what I did on that cowl. It's a similar one, not quite the same, but that cowl that I showed you that creates all those bubbles, it's a very similar decrease. Right, I'm getting up to where my first one is. I've got to think, where do I need to go? Right, I need to go two before that, because that's going to be the stitch where they go over. So once you've done the first one, first few, you'll see. So I'm going to slip those off. I knit that one and I'm going over. There we go. Nope, need to go one more stitch. I don't know what's going wrong with me today. Strange Tuesday. Oh well, doesn't matter. I'm looking through the, okay, try that again. So these are my two. That's where I'm going up. These are my two, knitting, sorry, slipping, knitting, now I'm going over. There you go. And you start seeing it become a bit bolder. That's why I say, just check where you're going to go. Not the end of the world if you do the wrong thing, as long as you haven't gone too far up. So there, eventually, that's going to look like that. Okay. So that's quite a lot of increases and decreases there. If you have any questions on those, don't hesitate to put them in the threads of the, don't hesitate to put them in the thread of the comments so I can answer them. If you need me to send you little directions for what I did here, I'll be happy to do that. Just let me know and I can add that in. So there we have increases and decreases. Okay, I'm going to ask the camera to turn back to me. I know that's a lot in your increases and decreases, but I wanted to show you how you can use them to really spectacular effect, not just to increase the size of the garment or narrow it down. you can use them for decorative functions as well. And there's several more, but I wanted to show you some basic ones that weren't too challenging. They might have appeared challenging for me today. I'm just having one of those days. Anyway, don't forget that this episode and all other episodes are loaded to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Do like, share, and subscribe to us. And there's one thing I wanted to ask you. I'm thinking that I might move this Facebook Live to a different time slot, possibly an evening time slot, as more people are going back to work now and returning to their place of work. Is this convenient for you during the day? Would you prefer it an evening slot? Let me know. Have a think about it. Let me know, because I'm thinking that that might be more useful to you. Of course, you'll still be able to watch the replays later, but if you want to watch it live, if you prefer it in an evening slot, let me know when that would be. Don't hesitate through the week to put in comments for Knitter Matters to answer any knitting question. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help. So stay well, stay safe, keep knitting. Join us next week for Knitter Matters Facebook Live. And until then, keep calm, stay knitting, stay well. Bye for now.